it's a different day and time. And when you're of a certain traveled HBCUs around the nation, but it's something about Howard University.
Cheating behind her husband's back. Rumors of living a double life spread all over social media. Being accused of skimming employees' wages. MC Lyte. She was once seen as the conscience of hip-hop. And then that very image of the proper woman became something dissected without mercy. Rumor after rumor piled up. Backstage stories were peeled open one by one. And the reputation MC Lyte had painstakingly built began to show cracks that were hard to hide. This was no longer the pioneering female MC the audience had once trusted completely. This is the portrait of a deeply conflicted MC Lyte. She is both a celebrated icon and a name constantly scrutinized by suspicions that are never fully told. Don't look away. The final truth will shock you. Before becoming a star, MC Lyte was a lost child amid Brooklyn's traps. MC Lyte, whose real name is Lana Michelle Moorer, was born on October 11, 1970, in Queens, New York, and raised in East Flatbush, Brooklyn. Unlike many hip-hop artists of her era, Lyte grew up in an environment with strong social awareness. Her mother worked at North General Hospital in Harlem, where Lyte witnessed scenes of heroin and crack cocaine addiction. Every day, images that even adults wanted to turn away from, yet a child had no right to avoid. She attended a special school where instead of physical education, students learned jujitsu and martial arts. Instead of junk food, they were given fully nutritious meals, and they studied poetry and music. It sounds like an ideal model, but how many children truly turn those things into their own voice, rather than just passing through and forgetting them? This created a unique cultural foundation for her artistic development, not because it was unusual, but because Lyte was perceptive enough to absorb it and transform it into street language. MC Lyte was deeply passionate about art, and she gravitated toward rap, a discipline already harsh and even less forgiving to women at the time. But despite everything, Lana began rapping at age 12 under her original stage name Sparkle, at an age when many people were still learning how to speak in complete sentences. She wrote her first song, I Cram to Understand You, at age 12, a track about drug addiction and its impact on relationships. If this were just imagination, why did the lyrics feel like a chilling field report? This was one of the earliest hip-hop songs to address the crack cocaine crisis. The real turning point came when she met Audio 2, made up of Milk D and DJ Giz, the hip-hop duo she regarded as brothers. But the key was not the connection itself. It was the eye of Nat Robinson, Audio 2's father. He did not just see a girl who could rap. He saw a rare talent standing in front of him, and he understood one thing. Clearly, wasting this talent would be a mistake. Nat Robinson founded First Priority Records and later signed a deal with Atlantic Records on the condition that Lyte was also signed not as an add-on, but because he knew there are voices that, if not preserved, history will reproach itself. The turning point. A career that did not follow the rules of the music game. At age 16, Lana Moorer officially debuted under the name MC Lyte and released her first single, I Cram to Understand You, in 1987. From the very start, she chose a path different from most hip-hop artists of her time. Instead of party raps or braggadocio, Lyte's debut focused on addiction breakdown and social consequences. That raw content quickly earned her recognition as a rapper with depth far beyond the image of a teen phenomenon. In 1988, her debut album Lyte as a Rock was released, marking an unprecedented milestone in hip-hop history. MC Lyte became the first female rapper to release a full solo album. This achievement did not come from marketing strategy or fleeting trends, but from lyrical skill, rhythmic control, and a musical personality strong enough to stand firm in an industry dominated by men. The album established MC Lyte as a true professional artist, not a label experiment. MC Lyte quickly proved that Nat Robinson's decision to sign her was absolutely right. Her career continuously created milestones that broke gender barriers in hip-hop. The song Cha 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 became the first track by a female rapper to reach #1 on the Billboard Rap Songs chart, elevating MC Lyte from a pioneering figure to a name with clear commercial weight. In 1993, Roughneck further expanded her influence by becoming the first gold single by a female rapper. This success not only generated major revenue from singles and performances, but also made MC Lyte the first solo female rapper to receive a Grammy nomination. From this point on, she was not only seen as a cultural icon, but also as an artist capable of generating stable economic value within the music industry. In 2006, MC Lyte was honored as the first solo female rapper at the VH1 Hip Hop Honors. This recognition cemented her long-term position in hip-hop history and confirmed that her earlier achievements were not fleeting luck, but the result of a resilient career spanning nearly 2 decades. Beyond music, MC Lyte successfully built a multifaceted career with large and stable income streams. She acted, hosted, and notably became a voiceover artist for national advertising campaigns for Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Nike. These contracts not only brought in enormous revenue, but also turned MC Lyte's voice into a highly valuable commercial asset. From a teenage rapper, she evolved into a complete personal brand carrying both artistic value and long-term profitability in the American entertainment industry. However, even though MC Lyte wanted to pursue art in a peaceful way, no diss, no beef. Once you step into hip-hop, that is impossible. The battle with Antoinette, the blast no one wanted. In 1988, when hip-hop was still an arena where women rarely entered without carrying prejudice, MC Lyte released 10% Diss. On the surface, it was a diss track aimed directly at Antoinette, a female rapper associated with Herbie Azor, the producer behind Salt and Pepa. But if you only look at the surface, you might think this was a personal spat between 2 female MCs. The reality was very different. The story began with Top Billin', the iconic hit by Audio 2. According to Lyte in her interview with Vibe in 2011, Herbie Love Bug had once had an agreement with Audio 2 to create a track called Stop Illin', built on the foundation of Top Billin'. When that deal fell apart, Antoinette appeared with a product that used a structure and spirit that felt all too familiar. For Audio 2, this was no longer about creativity, it was about honor. But they also understood the unspoken rule of the time 2 men dissing a female rapper would look like the weakest move on earth. And so all eyes turned to Lyte, not because she started the trouble, but because she was the only one sharp enough to hold the mic for them. This is a detail Lyte only revealed many years later. She did not enter this battle out of competitiveness. She stepped in because she was placed in a position with no way back. If she stayed silent, the entire first priority ecosystem would be seen as losing. If she spoke, she had to speak hard enough to end all debate in one shot. 10% Diss was born in that context. No detours, no ornamentation, no need for multiple responses. Lyte went straight at Antoinette's skill, credibility, and position. The diss was quickly regarded in hip-hop circles as one of the coldest diss tracks of the late 1980s. It did not just win. Technically, it won in flow control, word placement, and the frightening composure of someone so young. For Antoinette, the consequences came fast and heavy. Her career nearly stalled after this blow, a reality later hip-hop documentation has widely acknowledged. Antoinette responded with "Lights Out, Party's Over." In it, she accused Lyte of being a lesbian, a deeply personal attack that was especially shocking in the hip-hop context of that era. This was no longer about skill or music. It was an attempt to shift the focus, moving the battle from the mic to personal identity. But what stood out was that Lyte did not escalate further. She did not strike back with personal attacks. She let 10% Diss stand on its own as the final word. Years later, looking back, Lyte admitted this was one of the moments that made her think the most. Not because she lost, but because she won too cleanly. That victory brought credibility, but it also placed on her shoulders a hard, icy image that did not always reflect her full identity as an artist. This is the great paradox of this scandal. It did not kill MC Lyte's career, but it boxed her into the role of the one who always had to strike when the system needed a finishing blow. For many years, the real story behind 10% Diss was rarely believed. People preferred a simpler narrative, 2 female rappers jealous of each other. That was until Lyte laid out the full context, the names, the agreement, and the reason she was pushed to the front line. At that point, 10% Diss was no longer a scandal. It became proof that sometimes women in hip-hop do not get to choose their roles. They only get to choose how well they execute them, to the point where no one can deny it. The vicious storm called marriage, MC Lyte had a very beautiful relationship with John Weich, a former U.S. Marine and businessman, whom she met on Match.com in 2016. A story that sounded very normal, even ideal for someone who had lived her entire life under the spotlight. They got engaged in May 2017, and married in Jamaica in August of the same year. A lavish wedding in Montego Bay, where everything looked like a happy ending. But by 2020, just 3 years later, MC Lyte filed for divorce from John White, citing irreconcilable differences. A phrase so familiar, it almost feels meaningless, unless you look at what happened behind it. And here's the thing, they were married for 3 years, but were reportedly separated after only about 5 months. 5 months. A short enough time for people to start asking what really happened behind those perfect wedding photos. MC Lyte spoke very candidly about the breakup, admitting that the process was far from easy. She said she was deeply shaken at first, and emphasized that when a marriage begins to fall apart, the first phase is always desperately trying to keep it going first and foremost for yourself, as a way to prove that believing in it was not a mistake. Then comes the pressure to make it work for everyone who had placed their faith in that relationship, including family and friends who witnessed their lavish Montego Bay wedding. A marriage stops being just about two people and becomes a public promise, where letting go is sometimes seen as failing in front of a crowd. But eventually she came to a painful realization that this marriage simply could not last. Not because of a lack of effort, but because some things, the harder you try to hold on to them, the more they reveal they were already dead. She admitted that it was very difficult at first, but eventually she understood that happiness does not always mean staying together, and that a failed marriage does not mean you are a failure. According to her, holding on often has more to do with ego than love, and real strength does not lie in enduring to the end, but in knowing when to let go. For Lyte, the goal at that point was no longer forcing a broken marriage to continue, but making sure that both she and her ex-husband could find peace and happiness on separate paths. She also said that the divorce process dragged on for 3 years because White was reportedly hesitant and unwilling to sign the papers, turning a personal decision into a long and exhausting legal journey. However, despite Lyte keeping the details of the divorce, private rumors still circulated that her husband was living a double life and had cheated on her. In addition, some sources claimed that John intended to Tinder swindle Lyte badly. Rumors spread faster than the truth, and the problem was that when Lyte filed for divorce, stories quickly surfaced online, claiming that her ex-husband was trying to get his hands on the money she had worked for over decades. And although she did not go into detail about why they went their separate ways, she did take the time to shut down rumors spreading on the internet that John White was trying to grab her assets. Everyone knows that there have long been rumors that MC Lyte is at least bisexual. There have also always been whispers that she and Queen Latifah once had a romantic relationship. The two are very close, and that has never been a secret. MC Lyte has publicly said that their relationship is built on transparency and trust to the point where they can tell each other anything without fear of misunderstanding. Lyte calls Latifah, her sister, her queen, and has said that Queen Latifah single-handedly changed how female MCs view their work, as well as how the world views the business potential of female MCs. In an interview with Essence, she recalled their early bond and said that Latifah stood out from the very beginning. In her words, "From the start, we were inseparable. She had a very special energy. Artistically, Latifah was very free. A lot of that came from her mother. Her mother gave her wings to fly. Still, people never stopped speculating that there was something more intimate between them." For Queen Latifah, her sexuality has always been a topic of discussion, partly because of her screen roles, such as in Set It Off, where she played a character so masculine that the line between role and real life became blurred. And early in her career, Latifah choosing not to speak out inadvertently allowed speculation about her relationship with Lyte to continue. The civil lawsuit that shook Hollywood. In 2019, there were no police sirens, no handcuffs, no leaked footage, no tears in front of cameras. What appeared was simply a dry legal filing. But in the American entertainment industry, sometimes that alone is enough to shift every gaze. For MC Lyte, who had spent decades building an image of professionalism, community responsibility, and empowerment, an allegation of unpaid wages carried the weight of a direct blow to her credibility. The story began when TMZ published information about a civil lawsuit filed in court. The plaintiff was a man named Christopher Smith, who claimed to have worked for Lyte and her company on a project that lasted several months. According to the complaint, Smith alleged that he put in hundreds of hours of work but was not fully paid. The amount cited was $38,375 US, along with details of a check worth $11,250 US that he said he was unable to cash. At the time, there was no ruling, only numbers and paperwork. In the public sphere, numbers carry a special kind of power. They feel concrete, precise, hard to dispute. People can argue about motives, context, or misunderstandings, but it is very hard to argue with a number printed in bold in a headline. And so the story quickly took a different turn. It was no longer MC Lyte with scholarships, community initiatives, and the image of a calm, disciplined woman. Instead, a question hung in the air. Why was someone who always talked about fairness being sued over wages? What matters here is the nature of the case. This was not a criminal matter. There were no allegations of fraud, no conclusion that MC Lyte intentionally took someone else's money. This was a civil dispute, a type of conflict very common in the entertainment industry, where the line between completed work and unfinished work is often blurry. In many cases, the two sides simply disagree on scope of work, timing of payment, or acceptance conditions. But when the story is told in the media, those technical details are rarely prioritized. The issue was not who was right or wrong, but the narrative. For a young artist, a lawsuit like this might be seen as an occupational accident. For MC Lyte, it was read as a paradox. She was not new to the industry. She had been around long enough to understand the rules, sober enough to speak about responsibility, and smart enough to build a sustainable image. That is precisely why this collision felt unsettling to the public. It was like seeing a scratch on a white shirt you believed could never get dirty. TMZ, true to its style, did not tell the story with emotion. They told it with data. Hours worked, amount demanded, check value, everything laid out like a spreadsheet. And that is exactly why this case fits so coldly into the spirit of Until They Saw This. No one believes stories. People believe paperwork, even when that paperwork reflects only one side of the story. From a media perspective, this was easy to exploit. No deep digging required, no speculation needed. Just cite the legal filing and place it next to the image of an artist long associated with philanthropy. The contrast creates its own drama. And within that drama, the truth is often compressed, waiting for another time to be fully explained. MC Lyte did not admit wrongdoing. Responses on record indicated that this was a matter of contract dispute and work obligations, not intentional non-payment. But in an era where information spreads faster than clarification, explanations often arrive after first impressions have already been cemented in the public mind. And those first impressions are very hard to undo. What made this case toxic was not the amount of money. In the entertainment industry, $38,375 US is not a shocking figure. The toxicity lay in the fact that it forced people to re-examine every previous narrative through a lens of suspicion. When an artist speaks about protecting others' rights, the public begins to wonder whether that principle is consistent across all areas. When someone builds an image as a business person, people scrutinize more closely how they run their operations. From that point on, every action is read more slowly and more heavily. The lawsuit in 2019 also exposed a rarely discussed reality. The transition from artist to business person is never simple. Many artists step into roles as managers, producers, and company operators without a legal framework thick enough to protect them from disputes like this. They are used to the stage used to performance contracts, but must also learn the language of lawyers, clauses, and mutual obligations. And in that learning process, missteps are almost inevitable. However, the public rarely allows artists the right to learn. Their mistakes are not seen as mistakes, but as betrayals of image. For MC Lyte, who spent her life building a solid position, this was especially clear. A lawsuit without a verdict was enough to create a sense that something was off, even if no one could pinpoint exactly what. After the media wave passed, Lyte's career did not collapse. She did not disappear. But from that moment on, every story about her carried an added layer of unspoken annotation. That is the price of paperwork scandals. They do not knock you down instantly. They stay quietly and change how others read you. Placed within the broader scope of MC Lyte's life, the 2019 case was not her greatest tragedy. But it was an important slice showing the fragile boundary between credibility and suspicion in the entertainment industry. One number one check, one filing, and everything is retold in a different voice. And the final question remains, without needing an immediate answer, was this simply a contractual misunderstanding during a transition into business roles? Or a sign that even the most careful people can be worn down by the system without a strong enough layer of protection? For MC Lyte, this story did not end with a verdict, but with a quiet lesson about how reputation can be pulled down by nothing more than a number printed on paper. The exclusion of a legend. At the present moment, MC Lyte has not disappeared. She still shows up, still works, still creates, but her position on the map of popular music has shifted in a quiet and cold way. No longer at the center of the conversation, no longer the default name mentioned when contemporary rap is discussed. And what matters here is that this shift did not come from a loss of talent, but from a system that decided there was no longer room for people like her. If you look at the charts, the streaming numbers, the frequency of radio play or algorithm-driven playlists, MC Lyte has been pushed out for a long time. Not because she stopped making music, but because the kind of music she makes is no longer prioritized. Hip-hop has entered a different era, one where the pace is faster, the imagery sharper, and careers shorter. In that context, an artist who built her career on sharp lyricism, social storytelling, and moral consistency becomes a legacy rather than a product designed for constant circulation. The decline of musical achievements does not happen like a sudden fall. It looks more like a gradual push to the margins. Milestones that once made history are no longer repeated, often enough to hold space in collective memory. Titles of being the first that once carried the weight of opening doors are now framed inside history books and tribute ceremonies, instead of being treated as living foundations for the present. MC Lyte is still respected, but it is the kind of respect reserved for the past, not for someone who is still here and still contributing. For many years, Lyte has no longer been viewed as an active rapper, but as a cultural symbol. It sounds noble, but in reality, it is a subtle form of exclusion. When an artist is labeled an icon, they are often placed outside the current game. They are invited to speak, to present awards, to host shows, to announce other people's victories, but they are no longer seen as competitors. The system does not ban them from appearing, but it also does not open the door for them to return to the center. As a result, MC Lyte's later musical achievements are no longer measured by mass influence. Albums are released less frequently, not because she has run out of ideas, but because every release requires far more effort than it does for younger artists. There is no strong backing from a major label, no loud marketing campaign, no algorithmic priority. Her music exists, but it exists as a voice for those who actively seek it out, not for the majority being guided along. In another sense, Lyte has become busier than ever. She works as an actor, a director, a host, a voiceover artist, a community activist, a mentor to the next generation. These roles provide stable income and sustained presence in the entertainment industry. But this very versatility unintentionally reinforces a dangerous narrative that music is no longer the center of her career. And when that narrative is repeated enough times, musical achievements slowly get treated as something already finished. This exclusion is not loud. There is no single moment where someone openly declares that MC Lyte is outdated. Instead, it is a series of small decisions, not included in major playlists, not prioritized for performance slots, not placed into discussions about the future of hip-hop. Together, those decisions form an invisible wall, tall enough to keep a legend from stepping back in, but soft enough to remain unnamed. The paradox is that while her musical achievements are pushed away from the center, her symbolic value is exploited more than ever. She becomes the voice representing what hip-hop used to be, the pioneer generation, the original era. This use both honors and confines her. It casts Lyte as a storyteller of the past, rather than someone still writing the story forward. For an artist who once shattered every gender barrier, who opened doors through her very presence, being excluded in this way carries a particular bitterness, because it does not deny her contributions. It simply no longer needs her in the main current, and in the entertainment industry, being no longer needed often hurts more than being criticized. Still, MC Lyte does not respond with public resentment. She does not directly attack the system. She chooses to exist alongside it, to keep working, to keep creating, to keep control over her own narrative.
Not from record sale
She understands that the spotlight no
Lyte
longer
kept
shines directly on her, but that does not mean she has to turn off her light. At an age when many artists of her generation have completely disappeared, Lyte is still there. Not at the peak, but not in the shadows either. A middle ground where people can easily overlook her unless they
She
choose
said
to
their
look
friendship
back.
has always
And
been
that
into the mix.
position most clearly
Queen
reflects
Latifah,
how the industry
Lyte,
treats female
and
legends, not erasing them, but not giving them the space they deserve. The decline of musical achievements, then, is not a decline in quality, but a decline in access. No longer starting from the same line, no longer playing by the same rules. MC Lyte becomes living proof of an uncomfortable truth in hip-hop. Having once opened the road does not guarantee you will be allowed to keep walking on it. The ending of this story is not a tragedy, but it is not a complete victory either. It is a reminder that the light of fame can be brief, but the shadow of exclusion can stretch long. That the system is always chasing what is new, what is young, what is easy to sell,
how she looked,
and foundational values are often mentioned only when they are needed to decorate the present. MC Lyte is still there as an unerasable marker, but that marker is no longer placed on the main road. It stands slightly off to the side, where only those who truly care will stop and read it. And perhaps that is the moment that poses the final question. To the listener, is the brief light of a golden era worth more than a lifetime of controlled silence? Or is it the uncelebrated persistence itself that becomes the true measure of a legend?
We encourage viewers to approach the content with an open mind, critical thinking, and to always cross-reference with multiple sources in order to form their own perspective. That's the reality of the game. Fame always comes with a price. If you vibe with the content and want the real uncut stories, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the Black Vault.